Good morning, everyone. We are here today on behalf of Grant Park High School to present on the ethical and spiritual challenges of nuclear weapons.
Nuclear war is often thought of in the context of detrimental environmental effects and mass destruction. But really, it's more than just that. With nuclear war, it's defined as the military or political strategy or dispute that utilizes nuclear weapons. We have to understand that nuclear war poses strain on the moral, ethical, and religious aspects of life. This leads us to the essence of our presentation. The central issue with nuclear war is the effects on humanity and safety.
The ethical dilemmas of mass destruction. Approximately 105,000 to 246,000 people died during World War II due to nuclear weapons and mass destruction. The bombings were the only use of nuclear weapons in this armed conflict, with most victims being innocent civilians. There are many ethical dilemmas with mass destruction, with one of them being the violation of human dignity and justice. With so many lives being taken at once, it can be viewed as if each individual's life was not of value. That is not true. As it states in Section 7 of the Charter on Rights and Freedoms, everyone has a right to life. Just one nuclear weapon is so powerful that it has the ability to kill hundreds and thousands of people at once. That not only would end many lives, but also affect the victims' families and all those innocent people who are injured. Noah Chomsky, who is an American professor known for his incredible work with linguistics, stated, "As long as nuclear weapons exist, the chances of survival of the human species are quite slight." An ethical question that can be raised from this topic is, can nuclear weapons ever be morally justified?
Euphemistic labeling is often seen in words and can be defined as the practice of substituting harsh or offensive terms with milder, more socially acceptable ones. This can obscure the true nature of actions and situations, which can shape perceptions and influence moral judgment. When euphemisms are often used to soften harsh realities, people may become less sensitive to the underlying issues. For example, using the term collateral damage instead of describing civilian deaths. This can make the loss of lives seem less tragic or significant, especially when used selectively, as seen in this image here, which is a part of a World War II newspaper. In this newspaper, the author chose to use words like destroyed, damaged, killed, blew up, and sank when describing American losses. But when it comes to Japanese losses, it was significantly downplayed with phrases like failed to make it back to carriers instead of the earlier used words like killed or destroyed. Word choices like these can devalue human lives and promote empathy on certain lives.
What people often fail to think about nuclear war is the feeling of meaninglessness and nothingness it brings. All that's usually talked about are the numbers. The numbers of lives lost, the numbers of buildings destroyed, and the numbers of years it would take to fix the aftermath. These numbers aren't any less important than anything else, but they aren't the only thing that needs to be talked about. So now, instead of thinking about those numbers, I'd like you all to imagine a life where a tomorrow is not insured, where there is a chance, even a small one, of everything we hold dear being destroyed the next day. Would we be able to place meaning into our lives or into anything that we do if this were to be our reality? Gandhi states that the atomic bomb is the wholesale destruction of men, women, and children, and is the most diabolical use of science. Nuclear war destroys the meaning people put into their lives along with everything else. What it leaves behind is a feeling of meaninglessness. R.J. Lifton was a prominent American author, psychiatrist, and psychohistorian known for his studies on the psychological effects of war, political violence, and trauma. In his book, Death and Life, Survivors of Hiroshima, he talks about how nothingness and concepts like religion have redeeming virtues and can be imagined by the human mind. He then states that the nothingness nuclear war brings is so much of a grand concept and so horrific that we as humans cannot even fathom to think of such a thing. That is how vile nuclear war is. So vile that we cannot even imagine the aftermath.
The evaluation of human life. The more who die, the less we care. This image is the statistics of the number of people who died after the attack. Well, this image on the left is Michiko Kodama, who at 7 years old, she witnessed people without eyes crawling around aimlessly and others with their intestines in their hands. If you feel more compassion towards the girl on the left, that is because of a natural effect called psychic numbing. Psychic numbing is a psychological response that makes people less sensitive to the suffering of large groups. The saying often linked to Joseph Stalin, a Soviet politician, "One death is a tragedy, a million is a statistics," shows how our compassion fades as the number of victims increases. So how do we reduce psychic numbing? Humans need stories to connect with each other on a personal level. Only when we understand the pain and misery of others do we take action. Otherwise, their pain is too distant, too out of reach to comprehend. By prioritizing personal stories over impersonal statistics, we can stop the numbing cycle in news, charities, and academia. We must acknowledge that every death is not just a number. It was a soul, a heartbeat, a story filled with unique memories, a future stolen, and a world erased in an instant.
The moral responsibilities of scientists and leaders are so important, especially when it comes to talking about something as powerful as nuclear weapons. Gandhi once said that science without humanity, knowledge without character, and politics without principle are all sins. And that captures how dangerous this topic can be when acted upon without thinking about the moral consequences. Scientists and leaders hold knowledge that can shape or destroy humanity. However, we face the dilemma with the idea of just because we can do something doesn't mean we always should. That dilemma raises many ethical questions. Oppenheimer, for example, faced the personal and spiritual weight of developing the atomic bomb. His story illustrates how even profound knowledge, when acted upon without proper ethics and morals, can have devastating consequences. In the end, the responsibility of knowledge is not just about technical success. It's about understanding the consequences of our actions and ensuring that when we choose to create and when we choose to do something, we do so with proper ethics and morals.
Corruption of political ethics. Political corruption is considered to be a type of grand corruption as high-ranking public officials are involved. This is usually politicians and government agents who are entrusted with enforcing laws even though corrupt, along with using their power to illegally benefit themselves or someone else. This usually occurs at top levels of government. This plays into the deterrence of nuclear war. Deterrence means to eliminate bad behavior through threats. Politically corrupt leaders will use the threat of nuclear weapons to discourage unwanted behavior. An example of this is President Vladimir Putin of Russia. He is in possession of nuclear weapons, and if he chooses to, he can threaten a country like Ukraine to attempt to take land. Another example is Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un of North Korea. He is also in possession of nuclear weapons, and he can use these nuclear weapons to take land from a country like Taiwan. Now, I would like you to turn your attention to the definition of the ethics of power provided on the screen. With more politically corrupt leaders coming into power, we are moving away from doing things for the common good. An example of this is America. After World War II, America was seen as a very peaceful country. Now, with President Donald Trump leading the country, he uses his power to benefit himself. An example of this is early this fall. Early this fall, he sent nuclear submarines to the coast of Russia as a threat. If Russia took this threat seriously, we would be in a nuclear war. Due to punishment enforcing proper behavior, people fear nuclear war instead of entrusting the leader to make the correct decision when the time comes if an attack were to occur. This creates a world based on fear and not trust.
Intergenerational moral burden. With the passing of trauma, children are forced to live through their parents' and grandparents' wounding, extending and worsening the situation. This trauma is passed by stress undergone by the parents and children and child and social observations of the parents. This can happen before the child is even born. With new generations, they also have a higher chance of experiencing depression and aggression, just like their parents and grandparents before them. The best process to solve this would be listening and empathizing with the survivors. We have to recognize and understand their trauma in order to help them.
Bury the bomb, not the future. These are the words of Tomiko Morimoto, a survivor of the Hiroshima bombing. At just 13 years old, Morimoto witnessed the death of over 80,000 people, including her mother, father, and siblings. For years, Morimoto remained silent about her experiences, not because she forgot, but because remembering came with unbearable pain. The Hiroshima bombing was more than just an event in history. It was pure devastation, leaving survivors carrying such pain that words could never truly express. Next slide. Like Morimoto, many survivors remain silent about their experiences in fear that they would never truly be understood. As a society, it is our responsibility to acknowledge these experiences, to remember their pain, and to recognize our mistakes in order to honor the past and work towards a peaceful future. Next slide. We hope that this presentation has allowed you to reflect on the moral and spiritual considerations of nuclear warfare. On behalf of Grant Park High School, thank you for listening.